Hello, I'm James Jones, your host for E3 2014 coverage from NintendoWorldReport.com. With me today,
hi, I'm Jonathan Metz.
Michael TYP Cole.
And we're going to talk a little bit about day one from E3, but primarily we're going to talk about Smash Brothers. So today was both the Nintendo Digital Download, which we spoke about this morning, a digital event, excuse me. We also had a roundtable with Masahiro Sakurai, the game's producer, director, and pretty much everything. And we had the Smash Tournament, which Johnny here attended.
I did.
I guess we'll start off with the Smash Tournament. So Johnny, kind of give us the rundown of what happened.
It went very much according to plan, according to how they had set up the rules and the structure. It was done in the Nokia Center, the LA Live Nokia, and Nintendo has actually done press conferences in there before and other events. It's a pretty big room, and it was maybe half full. I was really kind of surprised because this was open to the public, and I expected a huge crowd of people there, and there wasn't. There were a lot of people, but certainly could have been a lot more. And it made me wonder if maybe they didn't publicize this properly. You know, I mean, I kind of go back to, if you say something in a Nintendo Direct, how many people actually know about it afterward, especially on fairly short notice like this was. And I was kind of disappointed because I thought the event was run really well. It was exciting. It was a great showcase for what Smash Brothers is and what it's all about and why people like it. I thought they did a nice job of involving the audience in the proceedings. There was a fan vote. There was actually, for the grand final round, the very, very last round of the tournament, the two final competitors actually, they put on boxing robes for them, and they ran from the back down the aisles and were high-fiving people.
Nice.
And it really felt like a three-dimensional event, which if you're there in person, that's what you want, because otherwise you could have watched it online like a lot of people did. And you know, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to watch people play at a pretty high level, even people who hadn't spent much time with this version of the game. They knew the rules and they knew the strategies, and for the most part, they knew the characters. You know, as I was there, I was thinking that Nintendo is probably the only one of the three major platform holders that could do an event like this. They're the only one who makes a first-party fighting game. And they're the only, really, and even if you include everything, including Capcom, I think Smash Brothers is one of the only fighting games where you could get this much mass appeal, where you could get people just literally off the street to come in and cheer and get emotionally invested in what's happening. And I mean, I would imagine most people understood what was going on, even despite all the chaos of the event. And I thought, you know, it's pretty cool that Nintendo is maybe one of the only companies that could do a kind of open tournament like this with a game like Smash Brothers, and I love that they're doing it. I love that they pulled it off. I thought it went really well. It was exciting. It was entertaining, and I hope they do more things like that. And yes, I mean there were moments where it really did kind of feel like the Wizard. Sorry, James, and Keeley made note of that, and it really did. It's very similar to the final scene in that movie. And the exciting thing was that they were playing a game that isn't out yet, that we don't know everything about, that they don't know everything about. And there were things happening in the matches with the abilities and the items and the level interactions that no one in the room saw coming because we've never seen it before. And so there was a real sense of surprise and excitement that came from that also. Cool. So I thought it was very competitive. It was really fun, and it was a great chance to just see a lot of that new game being played. It was just a ton of live gameplay footage, and I think, you know, Nintendo deserves credit for having the courage to put an unfinished game out there in front of so many people and have some really good high-level players come in and just sort of stretch it as much as they can. And to do so live it takes guts. And I thought they pulled it off, and it was very entertaining. And if you missed it, I'm sure you can go watch the video archived online. But you know, being there was, even for the smaller than I expected crowd, the people who were there were very excited about it. They were really, really into it, and that energy was palpable, and it made me happy that I was able to experience it in person. Even though I spent most of the time looking up at a video screen. Yeah. It was, you know, I mean, in a lot of ways, it wasn't that much different than watching it at home, but it was cool to be there.
Right.
So you didn't feel like just because they were high level play, you were dissociated in some way with the level of play. You could follow it, and
Oh yeah.
There's always this fear of, it just feels like a different version of Smash. But the rules they had chosen made it more approachable, right?
Yeah, I felt that way a little bit with the grand finals where they had new items and it was only one-on-one because, it was still very competitive and it was exciting because it actually was a pretty close match. It ended like within milliseconds of going the complete other direction. But yeah, I had a lot more fun with the items matches, which were also 4-player, and they were a lot more frenetic and just a lot more going on. A little hard to follow at times, and I was talking to Justin Berube, who also went to the tournament with me, and I think he and I both agreed that with the 4-player items on stuff, a lot of it had to do with the fact that we don't know all those elements, and so even if you've played a lot of Smash Brothers, it was still, you had to kind of learn how to focus your attention and how to follow the flow of the action, which is something that you develop in all of these games over time as you get more familiar with the elements, I think. But it was really fun, and yeah, it was also funny to see that some of these people are really, experienced tournament level players. You could kind of tell that some of them weren't used to playing 4-player Smash, and they weren't used to playing with the items. And sometimes they made really dumb decisions, things I wouldn't do because that's what I'm used to playing. But then, they get to the final round and I would be terrible at that. Right. So, it's different skill sets, but I was really happy with the mix of it, and I thought it worked surprisingly well.
Cool. So, we're going to try to keep it brisk today. We're going to talk about more Smash Brothers on subsequent videos, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about the 3DS version of the game because Mike, as far as I know, is the only person on staff who really put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, I played what do they call it? Smash Run? Smash Run 2 or 3 times with different characters, and it really did have a subspace emissary feel to it.
So
it looks like that too.
So this is like a 5-minute. It's like 5 minutes in like a randomly generated or semi-randomly generated subspace emissary style area where you're running around attacking a variety of enemies that are from a variety of different franchises, from Lakitos and Bullet Bills to monsters from, I don't know, Kid Icarus.
Yeah, they had some of the masks from Donkey Kong.
Even medals from Mega Man.
Yeah.
So they really, I was impressed at the variety of enemies, and they're like enemies that otherwise probably wouldn't appear in Smash Brothers, right? Like they're like the minions from all these different series. They're not going to be playable characters ever. Right. They might not even be assist trophies. But this is a way for them to kind of incorporate some of the smaller elements from those other games.
Right, so you meander through there, 5 minutes, getting your power-ups, killing these baddies, and I guess in the final game it can do 4-player or you're all in the same area, but for the demo it was single-player.
Right.
Probably because having that much wireless in E3 floors, it doesn't work.
No.
So that's what I had, and it was okay. I didn't really grab me that much. I feel like I knew what I was doing. Maybe there's no way to know what you're doing really because it's just sort of collecting stuff. And you find like a secret room and it has power-ups in it maybe, or some other event. There's as Sakurai mentioned, there's like a Kirby Air Ride type aspect to it. And unfortunately, I played that game in Japanese, so I'm not even sure that's true. So, but it's interesting. And then after that, you have the battle afterwards where it feels a little more like a normal battle. I didn't see one of the more obscure final battles in that mode. I had one where it was just a standard free-for-all, another one where it was, I guess they call it stamina.
Oh,
where it's
so it's like you have health?
Like it's really like a health
meter. So the battle type changes.
Yes, and it's unpredictable, is my understanding. Some of them involve who can throw items the farthest, and some of them put you on really weird stages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it is, and they had a couple of different characters in the 3DS lineup, at least on the show floor. I know Luigi was playable on the 3DS. I played as him, and he didn't feel that good, but it probably was because of him being put into that subspace emissary. And he's not a very good character for that sort of a traversal system. So I liked it. I had to really adjust heavily to the 3DS control scheme because it's diamond layout. So if you're used to a classic controller from Brawl, it's probably not an issue. But for me, I spent a couple minutes just telling myself, no, A's not jump. A is not jump.
Yep.
I thought the circle, I played it only once, a lot less than you, but I thought the circle pad felt pretty good.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any problems with circle pad. Like the only problem I had was the button mapping, which of course you can also, I'm sure, finally.
I'm sure you can change it.
change
Oh
it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Sakura is all about customization.
yeah.
But for me, the issue with the 3DS game, and I may get used to it, but it seemed like just the display was really small. You know, because
Right.
you have 4 people, and so the camera has to be zoomed out to some extent with a 4-player match, less so for 2 or 3. But you're seeing this all zoomed out, but on a much smaller screen than you're used to playing on Smash Brothers. And a lot of Smash Brothers is like being able to parse out visually what's
Right.
going on and where people are, and being able to follow that. So it's not something I would expect to get used to right away. I think it would take practice, but it definitely felt like it pushed me back down the learning curve quite a bit playing on 3DS, because it was a little hard for me to track where people are and where I was, and everything's
that's
just
hard, that's hard enough to do on the
right.
On
but when everything's just smaller,
So
you have to you have to look for different cues, I think.
So you don't think they adjusted the level design for the size of the screen?
I think, because the 3DS and the Wii U games have completely different sets of levels. Yes, I think that the 3DS levels probably are more attuned to that. But the one I played, we were on a train. I think it was Spirit Tracks level. We're on the train, and sometimes the pieces of the train, the cars would separate and would get split up, and this camera would zoom out to account for all this. And once that happens, it's like my little guy is really tiny on the screen. It's just a little bit it's just an extra layer of challenge to actually follow the action.
Sure.
Again, I mean, I think it's something you'll get used to when you play it more, but coming into it really cold was not something I would expect to struggle with, and it definitely had an effect on my play.
Cool.
Well, I thought it ran really well. I mean, it looked beautiful.
It looks
and
nice.
really, there was no slowdown or anything. I thought it was pretty impressive in terms of just performance.
I appreciate the aesthetic choices they made with that game and trying to make it distinguish its look from previous Smash Brothers titles and the one they're releasing right now.
Yeah, and it's bright and colorful, and it has 3D.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap up with just real quick. So we had the round table this evening, which is where we all came fresh from.
Fresh is not the word I would use, James.
We all came unfresh from, where Mr. Sakurai spoke about the development process for the game and answered a few questions, including Dr. Metz is here.
I always try to ask a question.
Yeah.
If I can.
So not a whole lot came out of it, with the exception of the fact that Pac-Man is going to be in the game. We got some insight on why some of the decisions were made that were made. We spoke a bit about the customization of the character movesets, which is interesting.
I don't know if I like it, but
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to stick with that.
yeah, I'm not a fan of how Mario Kart 7 and 8 handle the
I understand.
customization, and this seems like another step in that direction.
And so he spoke a bit about how a lot of this stuff that they're adding into the game is not meant to be played in what they call the for everyone mode, but it's meant to be played only with friends, which I thought was something of a telling statement by him.
Yeah, and I think it factors into, to some extent, his answer to my question, which was about online performance, which was partially sidestepped, I think, not a big surprise. But one thing he mentioned is that one of the problems in Brawl is that they allowed you to customize online matches as much as you want. You could do anything, and then they would match people up who had very different play styles. And I think, separating this stuff out into for friends and for everyone, it serves a lot of purposes. And in general, I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a smart way to handle things.
Right.
And I think when you go online and you play with random people, there's always so many unpredictable elements to that, turning off things like customization and turning off things like amiibo figure players and stuff like that. I think there's a utility to that in streamlining the performance online, which is probably a part of it. Is probably going to help with lag and latency, but also not feeling completely lost when you launch it. Like, why is Mario playing completely differently than he does when I play the game? There's something to be said for that, and I think it helps level the playing field in a way that is important for online when you're playing with random people. But when you're playing with friends, then you can pre-coordinate all these rules and scenarios, and they let you play that stuff. And also, it's easier to troubleshoot connection problems when you're playing with your friends. So they may be willing to take a few more risks with it.
Yeah, and I think it ensures a consistent experience from game to game. Because if you're jumping random game,
right, and the rules are completely different every time, then it's not
probably
good.
Mentally exhausting. So any final thoughts from what we've seen in Smash Brothers so far? Knowing that we're going to talk about it again later.
Yep, looking forward to playing more of it.
Yep.
I thought the Pac-Man announcement was fantastic.
It was amazing.
I've long suspected that,
Yeah.
that Pac-Man would show up. I'm very glad. I love the way they're doing it. They're folding in both the modern and the retro styles of Pac-Man based on what move he's doing at any given time. And you know, I was really glad that Sakurai took a moment to acknowledge that you now have a video game where Pac-Man, Mega Man, Sonic, and Mario can all fight each other in the same game. It really is amazing.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was a moment to step back and take stock of the incredible, glorious, bizarre thing that Smash Brothers is, always was, and has increasingly become. It is like a living museum of video games. And now when you have all these really old characters being represented, I think more so than ever. And it's something that I think, you know, in the fullness of time, we're going to look back and we're going to see Smash Brothers as like, it's almost like a measuring stick of the industry. You know, I mean, it's a dumb fighting game. Like I don't want to glorify it too much, but there is something magical about Nintendo's ability to unify these characters from not only their own franchises, but from other franchises, and to get them to interact in meaningful ways that feel true to those characters, and also all the other stuff they bring in, the stages and the items and the music and all these different ideas. It is this great melting pot of video games, and I think it celebrates video games as an institution, and as an art form, and the history of video games in a way that is very like self-knowing, but very fun, and very respectful to those franchises and to the audience for those franchises. And I love it. Like seeing all this stuff today reminded me of how much I love Smash Brothers. And you know, Brawl was like, I liked it, but it was kind of like a bump in the road.
Right.
It didn't change my life the way Melee did.
Yeah.
And I really want this game to be the next Melee. And if it is, I mean, I put like over 1,000 hours into Melee, and that's on the low end for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if this game really pans out the way that we're hoping it will, I mean, it's going to be a megaton. Maybe it is the only humongous game that Nintendo has for the rest of 2014, but maybe it is enough if it's that good.
I will say I was somewhat surprised when they were rolling through the Pac-Man video, and they're showing the levels they built for Pac-Man. They're just flashing them really quickly. We haven't really spent much time on levels in the game's announcements at all, and they showed a level based on traditional just Pac-Man arcade machine, which looks ridiculous and possibly almost unplayable in the most glorious ways that Smash Brothers can be. But they also showed a level based on the really god-awful Super Nintendo game, adventure game.
I saw that.
And
Which is just called Pac-Man 2, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called Pac-Man 2.
Pack in Time?
No,
No,
it's
it's
the point and click.
Yeah, it's a
Lord.
it's a point and click adventure game starring Pac-Man for the Super Nintendo.
You direct his actions by using a slingshot
Yes.
to sort of ding at him or other objects in the environment, and then he has a kind of an AI routine that
But occasionally,
decides whether to do something or not based on what you hit with the slingshot.
and he occasionally will just decide he doesn't want to do it. And not,
I would say most of the time
not
he
because-
decides he doesn't want to do
and
it.
not
He's very
because-
uncooperative.
Not because he's not supposed to do it, but because the game just decides he's not going to do it this time. If you try again, he may do it.
It's a very interesting, very broken
Yeah,
game.
nobody remembers that game fondly, but it is a great testament to the historical analysis they put into it. They decided this game deserves a level. And I really, really hope they've put in some kind of homage to all that game's problems.
I hope there's a slingshot in that level.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there has to be.
Yeah, I think there does. I
Yeah.
mean, even Namco knows that game's not good.
Sure.
Yeah, so I don't think they'd have any issue just making that game, that level, a complete mess.
Smash Brothers is all about warts and all.
Right.
You know, it is.
Own it.
Yeah, it's the full history of all these. It's so great.
To put that much effort into just Pac-Man,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. It's Smash Brothers is such a behemoth undertaking. I loved also when he mentioned that the testing, the reason that the games
Yeah.
are being released months apart is because it's going to take hundreds of people to debug these games.
Yes.
And that doesn't surprise me, but to hear him say it out loud is pretty impressive. Nintendo doesn't actually talk about sort of the human toll that their game development takes, and they don't really talk about the size of their teams and things like that. And that just the tiniest peek behind the curtain, I think, is so fascinating. And hey, like that's probably a really honest answer to a question that a lot of people have probably wondered. And you know, when they first announced that the 3DS game was coming earlier, a lot of people thought that was kind of cynical, or maybe there was some kind of marketing scheme. Maybe it just comes down to like
That's the one that can get done.
I think
They can
it's
delay it until they're both ready, but
yeah.
maybe they don't want to do that.
these games are so huge. Like there's so much content. It's frightening. Like they just never stop announcing things that are in it.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed that they can make 2 at the same time. I'm amazed they can make 1.
Right.
Much less 2 at the same time. And you know, for him to come out and say, yeah, well, it's hard to make these games. It's hard to debug them. That's why we have to separate them. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was refreshing.
I thought of the roundtables I've been to, that was one of the most frank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, shocking. You know, I mean,
know.
Sakurai he's a very frank,
Yeah.
honest guy, and that's why we love him.
It was a very good evening. I'll put
Yes,
it that way.
it was.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for us this evening. There'll be more Smash Brothers talk with other members of the staff who have played the games extensively, very extensively. And of course, there'll be more impressions for other games from the E3 show floor. If you want to hear more now, you can go to NintendoWorldReport.com, and we have impressions posted live right now from, I'd say, about 12 games at this point.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're very detailed, and we have lots of direct video captured by Jared, who is now walking behind the camera.
Hi, Jared.
Hi.
Hi.
And there's lots of really good content. It's almost like being here, except you're not going to be exhausted and tired.
I feel like crap.
Yeah. So we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Hi.